All right. Welcome, gods and goddesses in training. Welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara. All relations. Today we're talking all about an incredible topic. We're talking about the flow state, okay? The state of optimal performance. Now, of course, science has sort of popularized this, and Stephen Kotler just came out with a video from Big Think a few days ago that's talking about breaking this down. Now, I myself, I'm a positive psychologist. I've dedicated my life to studying this optimal state of performance and learning more so about it into how we can live in command of our flow states, of our states of mind, as well as how we can optimize our lives to reflect more so a flow state lifestyle. Okay. So that's really what I'm interested in. And I'm interested in pioneering a new field called peak performance shamanism, where we start to understand peak performance is not just scientific, it's also very spiritual. And we've got to understand how to bridge both of those worlds and alchemy, spirituality, creativity, mindset, and start to really help us understand how flow state coaching, self-actualization, personal growth, self-improvement, all these different things can come together and bridge us all together as solid people, with a plan to go towards something that is greater than ourselves, right? So really flow state is a vehicle that helps us become more expansive, greater than ourselves, tapping into our hidden talents or perhaps even what we're here to do on this planet, right? Our gifts and what we're here to really explore. And it's really, really interesting because the five paths to intrinsic motivation, I have recently mapped it towards the chakras as well. Just this is cutting edge stuff, guys. So if you're tuning in for the first time, please hit the subscribe button, support the algorithm, support this movement. I am Uncle Makara, and the Makara is the Hindu sea monster. If you guys don't know that, okay, do some research on the Makara, and you'll understand what my role here is in the spiritual community. Okay. Without further ado, I am going to share this with the tribe and we're going to tap in. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. So I want to start out by saying that I watched the Jumanji movie actually, okay, yesterday. And I watched part of it and I started to understand how ridiculous these CGI monkeys are, bro. Like, I can't get enough of how bad the CGI was that it was good. You know what I mean? Like, it was so bad that it was so good, that kind of shit, right? So, yeah. Anyway, irregardless of that, I hope you guys are all having an incredible day wherever it is you're tuning in from. And yeah, let's talk about this. So, when I was first initially watching this movie, I had started to understand that I'm not just chasing an idea, right? I'm rolling the dice of who I am. And that's really what Jumanji is, because if you will have watched the movie, and of course there's going to be spoiler alerts in this, it begins with a burial, right? Not a funeral, but a warning. These two boys in Brantford, right? They shoveled this box, this board game, and buried the game underground. Think about this, right? As a metaphor, guys. Burying this game underground, and they pray that no soul will ever hear its call, right? But the drums don't lie, right? That I think that's the spawn though, right? That's the pulse of the universe. That's not Jumanji itself, right? In the movie, they hear the sound of this drum, but I think it's something so much more deeper than that, right? I don't know if many of you guys have watched Jumanji. We are in Jumanji June. That's why we're talking about this topic. So anyway, this guy called Alan Parrish, right? A rich boy who's kind of like bullied and bruised all the time. He's running through the echoes of a factory built on, shoes, like a cobbler, right? His dad's a cobbler or whatever. And he meets Carl Bentley, a man with kind of ideas, right? And Carl shows him a prototype. Then Alan breaks the machine, and then you know, the movie goes on. Alan finds this kind of chest And it's still like a heart thumping right after death. Like that's kind of how it sounds like, but it's like shamanic drumming. So inside the board game that breathes, right? His friend Sarah or whatever, the soon to be seer, they roll the dice, but this isn't like a Monopoly game. He's like he accidentally rolls, right? And then Alan cries out like this game thinks that I've rolled, but I haven't even rolled, right? But that's manifestation. It's always happening, right? You don't get to pick and choose the right moments of what you manifest. You just hold the resonance, right? So the board responds like a demon judge. It doesn't care if you're ready. It's just decided, right? So in the jungle, you must wait until the dice read 5 or 8, right? What was that? Right? That's when Alan gets sucked into the abyss, right? So the jungle doesn't send postcards, right? It just takes your soul and gives you fangs in return. So 26 years vanish. And of course, Judy and Peter, new kids, new trauma wrapped kids, parentless, curious, brave kids. They find the game, right? So now these are two layers, right? There was a game that was originally buried, and the guy got sucked into the game. Now these new kids find the game, and then this old guy who's trapped in the game for 26 years, Alan comes back. Older, wilder, our eyes like storm clouds, kind of looks like Hagrid, kind of looks like, a Moses or a Jesus character, right? With his scraggly like look of just like long hair, long beard, right? He's back from the jungle. From the jungle. So think about that, right? Think about that transformation of being in a jungle and fending for your own survival, right? And then going through this game and then coming back and then playing again, right? So this is really interesting because there's stampedes of elephants and there's like pelicans shifting timelines and like chaos is everywhere in this movie. And I remember um well, the moral of this madness is you don't play Jumanji, it plays you, right? Every move is karma in cardboard. Every roll is a rite of passage. Every chance that we have to face our guts, to face our Van Pelt, our vines, our inner stampede, then you might not just win, you just don't miss your turn, right? In a sense. So if you're looking for originality, you're just hearing the drums, that steady pulse. Okay, that original heartbeat of source energy, the one that's calling you back into the attic of your soul, that's Jumanji. Okay, so let's understand it like this. All stories have been told, all myths have already been carved in the bark of time, right? And there's only a few board games in the divine attic. That's your trauma, that's your rhythm. All of these animals, what if they were just depictions of the inner chaos that translates through into this wild, right? Through the scars, through our senses, through our survival. Tarantino didn't invent blood, right? In his movies, it was just different. So if you want to make the movie the world's never seen, you can't force it. You gotta feel it. You gotta feel it. It's your movie. Because like for Elysée, like Beethoven catching melodies out of the ether, you're not just creating the music. You're tuning into the frequency that only you can hear, right? And so if you haven't rolled the feeling, maybe someone else would have, but the emotion behind it, that's yours. That's the heartbeat. That's that. You see, gravity is not about space. It's about filling in the void, desperate to feel the earth beneath our feet again. Okay. So here's your real job. You stop chasing the new ideas and then you start actually playing the game, right? You actually start to understand what's really going on underneath the surface. So let's catch up right now and understand that they lied to us about peak performance. Okay, it's very spiritual indeed. And the brain is like this weird ritual device. Okay, so let me just share the whiteboard. It'll be easier on me. So you guys know the movie Inside Out, right? How these emotions are depicted as characters, right? So psychology is outside in, right? Neurobiology is inside out. So this is where flow state bridges, okay? And this, guys, this flips the entire healing game, right? Because instead of diagnosing from behavior, we access core signal patterns now, just like a mystic tunes into a temple organ. So flow states aren't emotional highs, okay? They're mechanical alignments of a deeply ancient neurocircuitry, okay? This is what we're going to start to understand now. So flow state is, of course, if you think about it, it's kind of a divine drug cocktail, right? So dopamine gives you meaning and focus. Okay, norepinephrine creates alertness and urgency. Endorphins create bliss and pain removal. Anandamide creates euphoria and lateral thinking. Serotonin creates confidence and satisfaction. And oxytocin is like that connection, that love, that trust, that group flow. And if you couldn't survive it, you tried to externally replicate this mix through external substances, or you're trying to biohack your way into the divine, right? But the soul is the only one that can synthesize this. This is tantric bioalchemy, right? Because the adepts who trained their vessels to naturally invoke this chemical cocktail through risk, novelty, their purpose in life, their presence in life, right? All these different things, that's when you're going to start tapping into this thing, okay? So this is like the impossible elixir, guys. Okay. The impossibility elixir, as Stephen Kotler says. So we have to start to understand that our functional cell assemblies are like these psychic glyphs. Okay. I started to understand my tattoos the other day very differently as I started to rub some like lotion on my skin, and I started to notice this is a glyph that I'm charging with this lotion right now, right? And so I started to understand neurons create these temporary cell networks in less than 1/100th of a second to solve problems, to create patterns, to generate insight, right? So these are like bioelectrical sigils, guys. If you're thinking like me, you're understanding the adept who visualizes or channels receives living glyphs of thought activated through dopamine-rich pattern recognition. This is why mantra repetition, mandala focus, sacred geometry, all this kind of stuff taps us into the same mechanics or similar mechanics to a cognitive flow. So the yantras charge the grid, right? The understandings of how we etch in our minds this single pointedness, right? A mandala, all it is a center point with a spiral. And we are the upward spiral gang. So you got to understand this, guys. We are ritual edge walking in the challenge skills ratio. Flow state lives between boredom and anxiety, okay, on a 4% edge. This sweet spot is your spiritual's razor edge, okay, where your task becomes just uncomfortable enough to induce a loss of your ego, but not panic. It's a temporary shutting down of your decision-making center, which is your prefrontal cortex, and you are now tapping into your Shiva line, right? Where you meet the divine through mastery, not martyrdom. Okay? So let me just explain something to you guys. This is not hustle porn, right? This is the neurobiological map of Dharma activation. So if you really look at these intrinsic motivation mirrors as the ascending spiral, as the ascending chakra spiral, this is the new tech, okay? So understand this. Curiosity first starts the root activation in the Muladhara, correct? If you're not even curious about the spiritual path and what this life is, and if there's something greater than that, you don't start your spiritual journey. But everywhere you go, they tell you curiosity kills the cat. Don't be too curious. Don't explore. Just stay in your little bubble. Just stay safe. Just say okay. All right. So then most people, they don't even begin because they have this looming fear. And you cannot activate the root if you don't have a good relationship with fear, right? You have to first break through that threshold. And this is coming through that dopamine, that root spark, right? Then we get the passion. From the curiosity, you get the passion. And then once you stack the passion, you get the purpose, the solar commitment. So these are already your first three chakras handled. Once you figure out what I'm curious about in life and you think about it, like if you were to pay for 25 TED Talk speakers, what would be the titles of those lectures? Like think of it like that. And then the second thing you can do is start grouping them together. This is something that I help you do as well, by the way, as a flow state coach, as a positive psychologist. I help you crystallize this and help you figure it out, like what you're really here to do, right? Your soul blueprint, what you're here to really show up as, right? And this, we do this through chakra work, actually, because the chakras are very, very evident of energy centers that are very hidden to us, right? But we know the mechanics of it. So let's use it in alignment with the five intrinsic motivation points, right? Then we have passion, the sacral fire. And of course, we have the purpose. You notice very purpose-driven individuals, they have willpower, right? They have decision making. They have that solar plexus commitment. That's how they're able to move like that. You guys are getting this? So this is really, really key. Because once you understand your purpose, then you start feeling like I'm independent and I'm a self-made person and I've got my own thing going, right? It's only before that, when you don't have a purpose, that you're aimlessly drifting, you're purposeless, you have a solar plexus caving in almost in a sense. You have a depletion of your solar plexus power. Okay. So you notice a lot of people with low self-esteem or low self-worth, they cave in their chest like this. They actually cave in like this, okay? Because there's a shame, there's an emotional blockage, right? An armoring going on there. So once you change your posture, once you start actually activating, doing yoga, doing meditation, these types of things, but you're naturally flowing into your own autonomy, which can come through your heart, right? Once you have a good will, then your heart activates with the love, and then you can speak it into existence, right? That creates sovereignty, that creates autonomy. And then finally, once it's reached these upper chakras, now you have a focus and an embodiment, right? That's when you're becoming slowly a master. That's where you're starting to really activate your spiritual powers and understand that there's something greater or deeper happening, right? Out of this space of mastery. So this is all from Stephen Kotler's, but I've added the chakra equivalents here. This is a very Primal Sutra tech. It's copyrighted. You can't use this anywhere else. Okay, you got to give us credit because this has been through the Nexus and this has been through a deep exploration and a guidance system through, it's almost like trauma transition through high flow rituals, right? So flow has been shown to overwrite the PTSD in our brains by bathing the brain in these chemicals that basically save new powerful memories over traumatic ones. So the Primal Sutra adept becomes the neuro shaman, overriding trauma with a holy risk, right? Sacred theater, ancestral combat dances, surfing, skydiving, whatever it is that you do, you're overriding your trauma with a holy risk. Okay. And this is what Kotler did when he had, what did he have? Did Lyme disease, right? Yeah. So when he had Lyme disease, right, he got on a surfboard and his friend had to actually drag him out into the sea to get on that surfboard. And who would have known that gratitude, exercise, and mindfulness, right, were actually flow purifiers? And so, listen, if you want to enter a flow state, you first have to clean the vessel. Okay. If your nervous system is gunked up with ambient stress, flow will reject you like a bad offering. This is why breath work helps so much because it conditions us back, right, into a calm nervous system. And that's where these holy beings work with us way better. Okay. So transient hypofrontality is actually an ego death protocol because when flow deepens, guys, the prefrontal cortex, right, goes offline. So that means this is the seat of time. This is the sense of morality, the sense of ego, right? Or superego. It goes offline, right? And so what do you become? Effortless, limitless. We use these terms, right? The movie Limitless, eternal, okay? Non-linear. So in this God state, even thinking about yourself kicks you out. That's wild. Even the slightest bit of self-consciousness or I kicks you out of it. That's why performance and prayer have got to become one. That's why, movement and medicine have to become one, because the adept who releases the self-image can download the God image. You see, you're replacing one software for a greater hardware. Okay. Um, or do we have any comments, guys? I see people watching this, but no kind of participation. So either you're just listening or just chime in, just say something, what's going on, what are your ideas around this, etc. Okay. Now let's talk about a little bit about the Bannister effect, okay, which is basically the gateway drug of belief. Okay. So if you really understand this, you will actually understand that this was like the first psychedelic is belief, right? Okay. So how do I explain this? So think about it. So in 1954, right, this guy named Roger Bannister, he ran a mile in under 4 minutes. But in the Primal Sutra lens, this wasn't really about speed. This was a ritual breach of collective limitation imposed upon him. So this man, Mr. Bannister, pushed through the membrane of the mass societal belief system that it can only be done at this time and completely obliterated and shattered it. Up until that moment, running a sub 4 minute mile was considered biologically impossible. Doctors said the body would collapse. Coaches believed the heart will fail. The mass mind was spellbound by limitation. But Roger didn't train his body. Roger trained his belief system. So he ran with the soul, not the stopwatch. And within weeks, guess what? Others broke the record too. Why? Because the collective spell dissolved. One man lit the torch, others remembered their fire. So are you reminding people of their fire? Are you leaning into your impossibility? Are you saying that I am the one that can do this, right? And putting yourself as a trailblazer and pioneer, because that's how you're going to stand out. That's how you're going to swim through the currents, right? So we can define this through the Primal Sutra Codex. The Bannister effect is the quantum unlocking of dormant potential in the collective field, catalyzed by a single sovereign act of defiance against the perceived laws of limitation. So that means this is metaprogramming. It's not just motivation, it's how reality itself updates when someone decides that the impossible is simply outdated. So you're already carrying a Bannister code inside you right now. The business idea no one gets, the healing gift that you've been hiding for years, right? That insane amount of energy that just doesn't fit into anywhere. These are your 4 minute miles. And your job isn't to explain them. Your job is to run them first fast, flawlessly flawed, failing fast, moving through the edges, working with the mistakes because they're missed takes of the movie. And we understand when I run past the veil, others will remember how to fly. When I do the impossible, I delete the code of limitation. Okay? So you don't wait for the proof, you just become the proof. Yeah, but I'm just waiting for one guy to say that it's okay for me to be a flow state shaman, and so then now I can do it. Bro, this is not a story about a runner. I just gave you the metaphysical blueprint for breakthrough frequency. And you, if you are a Flomo sapien, you're ready to shatter what the matrix says is fixed, right? You're ready to run through the wall. I know you guys, okay? Who's already collapsed the timeline, and how do I mirror that morphic code into my reality? Because if belief really is the gateway drug, I want to create a level of belief that's delusional, that optimizes my life in such a way and proves it. I become the living proof, the living example for others so that they can shine in their light, in their God image. Okay? So every trigger, every novelty, complexity, okay? Flow triggers, I mean, not actual triggers, okay? Not getting triggered. I mean things that trigger you into focus, okay? There's good triggers and bad triggers, right? So you got to know your good triggers too. This is what I'm saying. Most people focus on their negative triggers. Most people focus on the red flags, not the green flags. Most people focus on what's wrong with me, not what's right with me. Okay. Now we're completely changing focus because flow follows focus. So every single flow state trigger, most common are novelty, complexity, pattern recognition, is about driving attention to the present moment. So the adept becomes a precision sniper of presence. And by doing that, they're trimming away all psychic fat, all static, all mind paranoia, right? All made up human mind stuff. I'm deeply engaged. Yeah, buddy. Lightweight, baby. Nice. 111 my time. Awesome. Awesome. This is, yeah, I'm glad this is resonating. So, this is a really, really interesting thing that I just came across today. I'm starting to understand, like, wait a second. Why don't I optimize this? Why don't we optimize this? Right? And start to understand how we can hit these flow state triggers, how we can understand and stack these intrinsic motivations with our chakras. Okay. Uh, let's call it, let's call it motivation stack equals Kundalini staircase, right? Because that's really what it is. All right, man. This is epic. All right, so now that you're understanding this, let's figure out a way to what's a way that you can tap into all of these, right? Mm, I have this saved. Okay. So the first things first, okay? How do you Vajramax your nervous system? First of all, we have to burn the gunk somehow. So you need a daily nervous system purge of some way, okay? It could be a gratitude ritual, which rewires negativity bias from 9 to 1 to 5 to 1. Okay, so that means you are not looking at the world as more negative as you're doing a gratitude practice or a ritual. Um, Mindfulness meditate. Let me do actually, let me write these out. Okay, show you guys. Okay, mindfulness meditation of 11 minutes, just 11 minutes of breath. It's a full reboot. Okay, it's enough. And movement, some kind of movement till your inner critic shuts up. So like 20, 40 minutes of nitric oxide flush. You're going to the gym already for 40 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So at least two of these daily. At least. If you can't do one, do the other two. Okay. If your nervous system is a temple, this is like the smoke cleanse, right? This is like the nervous system purge, let's just say. Okay. The next thing you want to do is carve out 90 to 120 minutes of uninterrupted time sometime during your day. This is your Vajra hour, right? Just your flow block on your calendar, your lightning temple of focus. No one fucks with you in that time. Just no phones, no pings, no people. The task has got to stretch 4%, remember, beyond your current skill. Okay. Don't be doing low level skilled stuff. Don't be in an industry where you're not using most of your skills. Okay. Or you're not being challenged at all. Lean into that. That's what's going to tap you into the deep now. Okay. So start at your biological peak time. Okay. Everybody has their own circadian rhythm, their own clock of wake and sleep. Okay. Understand what yours is and work with it, move with it. I usually have late nights. I wake up later than usual. The normies, okay? I wake up later because I've chosen to live my life that way. Now, I don't know if that's going to go on forever. I might just start getting up early one time. But then that's a complete change into my sacred runes, which is the novelty, the risk, the pattern recognition, right? So novelty is like new music, new stimuli, new things. We're getting a lot of novelty and dopamine already from reels, right, guys? So that's not really, I mean, really inspiring reels. Sometimes it gets me into that mode, but just overdoing it is almost like an information overload, right? So you don't want to overdo this kind of stuff. Also, the risk, like there's emotional risk as an artist, there's social risk, there's spiritual risk, there's physical risk. Risk is not just a one-time thing or a one, overarching concept. There's many kinds of risk that you can tap into that hijacks your flow. Okay. Because it wires you in. If there's a risk, there's a time pressure, there's a movement, there's an urgency. And that's exactly where the flow is coming from. It's like a boom. Oh shit, I got to get serious, right? It's that. So pattern recognition is the puzzles, the strategy, right? The spiritual downloads that you're getting. You're observing all of it, right? You're making notes of it, perhaps. Maybe you're journaling about it or something, right? And then, of course, complexity and awe, which is through all kinds of things like nature, stargazing, sky gazing, looking at sacred geometry, maybe even designing an altar, in a sense. And also, how do you deactivate ego through transient hypofrontality, right? You set focus externally, right? So your task becomes greater than your self-image. Okay. So stop worrying about how you look or if you're doing it right. You just have to think speed, precision, signal, right? That's how you think, not me, I, me, right? You're thinking speed, precision, agility, right? It's like video games, guys. That's the real ego death. It's not dissociation, it's an immersion, right? It's like catalyst, move, jump, shift, dodge, right? We have these little verbs that we use in video games, right? Or we're pressing a button, but how are you speaking to yourself like buttons would? Are you speaking to yourself like a button would? Like you would press a button and would give you an outcome, right? But you're not pressing your own buttons. That's the thing. Other people are pressing your buttons, right? Let's call them the hot buttons or whatever, the trigger points. But you got to press your own buttons and lean into it. You got to blow out addictions with higher highs, right? Why don't you replace heartbreak with something else? Why don't you replace scrolling with martial arts or like some wilderness trek you do, right? Why don't you replace your escapism with a high stakes art thing that you're doing randomly, right? Or like some kind of ritual performance. What about overriding our pleasure chemicals, right? With sacred chemistry, replacing loops with lightning. You know how I treat my emotions now, guys, is lightning. It's just lightning, okay? I'm not going to attach to it. This is fear. This is sadness. This is It's all Vajra. It's all emotion. That's how I'm thinking about it nowadays, guys, right? I'm not really thinking about whether is the sadness going to coincide with my laziness? Is do I need to justify this one emotion with this other emotion? Right? I'm not in these traps anymore. I'm just like, whatever. It's just lightning, right? Let's fucking go. So you install the motivation stack, the chakra ladder edition, right? That we talked about. You try to stack these a day, right? We have, of course, the chakra sounds for adepts as well. You guys can definitely tap into that. Okay. So listen to maybe one that you're thinking like maybe I need to work on my purpose, right? I need to work on my solar plexus chakra. Maybe I need to work on my autonomy, right? Maybe I'll charge my heart and my throat today with that frequency, right? So think of it like an internal RPG skill tree, right? You have to level up in order, okay? Uh, let's see here. Okay. So really, really interesting, okay, guys? How we're moving from a root spark to a sacral fire to a solar direction to a heart freedom, third eye crown precision. Okay. Here's the final rule for you guys. The more flow state that you get, the more flow state you get. Flow trains flow. Each time you drop in, your nervous system remembers the code. It just becomes easier, just becomes cleaner and sharper. So until you live in this truth consciousness, this Vajra Satya Yuga consciousness, a clarity so pure that it cuts illusions, right? Your nervous system will keep kind of rising, dropping, and being in this strange, understandings. And I think, honestly, we need to also reframe our identities, right? Because you're just not used to being worshipped. You get what I mean? Like, if someone started to worship you, you'd be like, that's kind of weird. Why are they doing that? Do they really like me? That your trust issues are going to kick in. So you have to understand to make it playful, mysterious, loving, and rewire your self narrative. And you're doing this gently, but you're doing this consistently. Okay. So what we're really doing here is we're giving ourselves a blueprint. We hit triggers. Okay. So, of course, we understand that flow requires a purified nervous system. So, if you're stressed, if you're inflamed, if you're overthinking, if you're in survival mode, then your brain is not going to let you flow. So, you got to earn the gates with nervous system hygiene, right? And so, purge the cortisol demons, right? Like I said, gratitude, movement, mindfulness. Create your own flow window, 90 to 120 minutes. Okay. You could pick your own prime time, like 8 to 11 a.m. or 7 to 9 p.m. And then you turn off all notifications and you tell people you're off the grid during that time or you're locking down during that time. And you enter it with a goal that stretches you 4% past your edge. Okay. So, and then of course, you're stacking flow triggers, like 3 a day, like sacred runes that you're tapping into. Maybe you can even like write out all the flow triggers, right? And like just pick a card a day, right? And just stack at least three. Um, Stop multitasking so much or creating comparison, trash content, doom scrolling, we already know this. But they're really leeches on our neuroelectric grid, so you have to sort of do some psychic hygiene, guys, okay? It's not easy, of course, in this day and age. We're bombarded with data. So just make it simple, make it easy for you, okay? Clean the temple, open the gate. That's it. I mean, is it really that difficult? Right? 3 minutes a day of breath work, a little bit of movement, 5 minutes gratitude dump. 5 minutes just sacred silence. Like this is possible, right? Just 15 minutes a day. If you can combine all of these practices that I've mentioned into just 15 minutes, hey, you got it, right? 5 minute gratitude dump. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that for 5 minutes. 2 minutes, I just move around, do some yoga. 3 minutes, I do some breath work. 5 minutes, sacred silence. I could even do Mike Cheng's flow training every day, right? So that's the thing. You have so many options, but what makes your soul light up? Don't do it just because it's written here in this live video, okay? Do it because your soul sings to it. Do it because your soul wants to go there and move there slowly. You understand that that makes me light up, man. There's Shakti flow, there's Kundalini, there's extra energy in my body when I think about this or feel like this, right? And that's what you want to really tap into is that invisible thing it's not making you so excited that you spike up, but it's almost like a part of your norm, right? You're almost like going through this like, yeah, it's bound to happen, right? It's kind of that delusional confidence, but honestly, people who have to pump themselves up before speaking all the time, they aren't in their naturalness, right? They aren't in their natural flow state essence. They're trying to like create a good performance so that the audience understands and hears them. Instead of what? Tapping in, flowing through all of the mistakes, all of the hiccups. Let them happen. Let them flow. Time keeps moving forward, right? Time keeps moving forward. Time isn't going to go back and think about, oh, maybe I'll, think about that one time that I fucked up. No, that one time you fucked up was a catalyst. It was a lesson. Maybe you didn't learn that lesson. That's okay. That's valid. But still, you can't keep ruminating and ruminating and ruminating on this one thing that's taking up way too much rent space in your head. You gotta let that go. I thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I release you. Okay? Send it away. Send it back to source. Violet flame the shit out of it. You don't need negativity in your life. You're just calling it negativity, right? It's really your survival. You're surviving right now, and that requires a little bit of negativity, a little bit of cynicism, a little bit of just, understanding things realistically before you just jump ahead. And I get that. But also, there's going to be times where you're just like, man, I just got to get off on the stage and do a good job. And maybe I'll pump myself up or do a few things. But if I can naturally just be like, yo, I'm just in the living room talking to my homies, if you can access that natural unnaturalness, as Bruce Lee would say, now you're already in it, my friends. You're already in it. If you can already be nervous system regulated, talking to a complete stranger as if it's your living room, okay? You're already there. You already got it. That's the secret, right? You're not like, oh my God, it's Steve Jobs entering my house. Oh my goodness, maybe I should clean around a bit. Maybe I should just move this over here. Or maybe I should, oh yeah, maybe I'll spice things up. Maybe I'll put this in the corner and maybe leave a good impression like that. Hey, did you buy the plants? I told you to buy the plants. Why didn't you buy the plants, right? You don't want to be that guy. You just be like, oh, Steve Jobs coming, cool, right? That's the thing that you guys have really got to, don't underestimate yourselves, right? You're like, that person is an A-list celebrity. Yes, but you also have that same God spark, that same potentiality. Why not you, right? Again, you're just not used to being worshiped. You're not used to being like praised or whatever. But what if you were? What if your belief system, your banister effect, was blasting that every single millisecond? You'd be kind of neutralized and normalized to it, right? All right. I've spoken to clients, they're like, people message me like thousands of, this is mostly girls, right, who say this. Guys messaging me thousands of times, and I have to keep blocking the numbers. It's like they can't get a hint. Well, also, why like set a strong boundary, right? But this is wild actually, because my girl Ellie, she also experiences this. Like so many guys message her just to block, like she's just thinking about getting a new number, in that sense. I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal that, babe, but I mean that's crazy to me, right? That's so wild. That's not in our realities, but that's the world we're living in. We got to start to understand what's really going on. Have you guys watched that the Andrew Tate and the Bonnie Blue thing? That weird shit going on, right? That the chaos chaos magic, right? It's a bunch of chaos magic. That, okay? Absolutely. And the thing is, those triggers that are there in that, if you can naturally ground to that and just relax your nervous system to it, like they're just two people talking about shit, right? If you if you don't project onto it, you're clean, right? It's like, okay, two people are talking nonsense. Cool. They're yapping. That's fine. Right? You're not like, wait, he said what? And retweeting it and then going here and then doing that and then getting reacted there and then going here. It's like your whole day is now flung around thinking about celebrities instead of you doing your shit and shining like one. Like, that's the main trap. And that's why we're seeing the death of the celebrity now. That's why we need to recreate our own flow states and be the influencers, actually, the ones that actually create ripples, right? Ripples through the quantum, positive, energetic ripples through the quantum. So, this is the last thing I want to say, guys, okay? It's as simple as getting out of scarcity into abundance again, okay? But it's not understanding that you might also be in scarcity if you're like, I'm trying to shortcut this process. I want this to be faster. I want this to be instantaneous. That's still a scarcity if you guys think of it, right? Because it needs to be now. It needs to be quick and it needs to be instantaneous. And that's the culture we're living in. So that kind of mentality is actually going to produce more scarcity mentality in individuals. And we're seeing this in a lot of, like, men are just trying to outperform each other and try to be hyper masculine, and women are trying to still outcompete with other women to create this chaos, right? So that's creating very it's creating a looseness of ethics, of morality. It's just creating this almost like an energetic seesaw effect, right? And you gotta be like, I'm not there to play that game, right? Yeah, it becomes a parasocial relationship, right? So it's like you gotta detach from that storyline at times and be like, I'm living my own storyline of this abundance, right? I can have it all, actually. I can have my wealth sorted. I can have a good, finance coming in. I can have good, you know, spirituality, feeling clean inside, internally, with solid practices, right? I can have it all, really. And that I can have it all mentality is actually going to help you right now, because right now, guys, there's psyops happening, okay? And it's very clear to me that they're happening. So we just have to create a better psyop that overrides that psyop, okay? And that's the way to do it, okay? You gotta defeat them, okay? You gotta defeat them all right? Unfortunately, that's how it is, okay? You just have to not divide and conquer, right? Unify and conquer. It is what it is, right? And to get out of Scar City into all up in abundance, as I posted in the Telegram group, right? My old song from 7 years ago or whatever. Um, so going from Scar City, okay, where the some scars, some scars come from, the limited perspective, you're lacking. You're a low value male. You're an incel. You're a beta. You're a this. You're a that. Right? You're a cuck. These are words. These are words to try to demoralize, emasculate, bring down. The same thing is happening with the slut shaming for the women. Right? Demoralize, bring them down. Bring them down to what? To a level where they can be manipulated, easily controlled. Right? Instead, you're observing that a lot of the CIA guys nowadays are coming out on YouTube talking about it. Why? Because society believes in this lie of scarcity, guys. Society at a large has bought into this one belief, especially America. It's bought into this one belief of scarcity. And they've ran with it. Even the CIA, right? They've ran with that as an actual blueprint for this thing on shaky foundation. Not understanding God's abundance is overriding the code, okay? So you just gotta relax your way through this. If you understand this as an illusion, you can just watch and eat popcorn and enjoy the show, you know? Fuck it, right? I'm not gonna get involved. I'm gonna be evolved. That's it. Okay, Inside Out Tech. Let's get it. Upward Spiral Gang. Thank you guys so much for tapping in. I hope this gave you a unique perspective into this whole flow state science thing because I know a lot of people talk about it. But again, peak performance, guys, is very spiritual. It's very about mind heart coherence and what heart math is doing. It's very related to all these technologies where science and spirit are slowly starting to merge. But let's not try to rush our way through this process. Okay, maybe Dr. Joe cured some terminal disease for you. That's valid, but that distortion of people pointing out that maybe that there's something off with that needed to happen too. It all needs to happen, right? In a sense. So it's not like we can control the outcomes like that because it's already happening, right? We just have to bring awareness to the points where we create from our hearts again. We're not creating from our minds anymore. We're creating heart-based things from the divine will, solar consciousness, and sovereignty, most importantly, as we saw in this model, right? So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tapping in. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. May the flow be with you. Stay legendary. We got this. Up in a time I got. Okay, let's get it. Upward Spiral Gang. May we never be the same again. Peace. Peace and love. Many blessings. You got this. We got this. Upward spiral to infinity and beyond.